guys, it's Carolyn. Welcome back to the podcast. And we're talking about one of my favorite topics to talk about, numbers, because it's probably the most important thing you can keep track of to keep your business on track and to stay in business. So today I have with me Ahuva Gruen, who is a fractional CFO, who's going to tell us some things that how to measure, how to manage, and how to improve. Good morning, Mr. Ahuva. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Carolyn, for having me on this show.
No, thank you so much for being here. So before we dive into all things numbers, tell us a little about yourself and how you got to be in this position.
So, from when I was a little girl, 5 years old, my mother had a business, and I convinced my kindergarten teacher to go and use my mother's service because that would be the best thing for her. By the time I was 10 years old, I had my first business. I was always a businesswoman. I had a candy business. I went and bought candy wholesale by a case, bought it for 7 cents, sold it for a quarter. It started off in the neighborhood, in the school, in camp, all over. And that was for a few years. By the time I was in high school, I had different businesses. I was cutting people's hair. I was always a businesswoman. So then it was natural for me when I graduated to go to become an accountant, a CPA. Then while I was a CPA and a CFO of a large company, I ended up helping family and friends and acquaintances in their business. And I saw a trend that bothered me to no end. Bothered me to no end when I saw people that knew the services they sold or what products the services they provided or what products they sold, but they were not good at running their financial. And it bothers me to no end because it really hurts the bottom line. It hurts how much money they make, how much they're spinning the wheels, how much they're taking home, how much they could grow. So when I left my company in Corona and I thought what I wanted to do next, do I want to be another CFO or do I want to follow my passion? I decided to follow my passion and became a fractional CFO to help businesses grow and succeed.
Gotcha. So what exactly is a fractional CFO? Can you explain that?
A fractional CFO is a part-time CFO for companies that don't need a full-time CFO. CFO stands for Chief Financial Officer. It's the one who goes in and dives into the books where they could be doing better, strategically, what's going right, what's going wrong, where can we make more money, where we're leaking out money. So for business who's not big enough or doesn't need a full-time CFO, it's much more financially worth it. It's much more effective. And it's a great model.
So they could get the services of a CFO without having to hire one, without the price tag of hiring one full time.
Right, and they're getting a CFO that comes with over 20 years of experience without paying a full-time salary and benefits for a full-time CFO of that caliber.
Gotcha. Yeah, especially in the construction industry, everybody gets in the industry because they're really good at what they do, but very fast. You also have to learn how to run a business.
Yes, and I love your title of your podcast because how not to get screwed. Because in construction, which is one of my favorites, you could do really well or you could really screw up and really lose money. And if you don't know what you're doing, you really could go under. And they're not talking about hundreds of dollars, it's thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's either you can make it or you really do awful. Like a famous expression is, you could be selling peanuts and popcorn and that's what you'll make. Peanuts and popcorn, or you could be selling peanuts and popcorn and make a fortune.
I agree. And so like say somebody's been running their business for 2 or 3 years, their books are a mess. They know their books are a mess. They don't know if they're making money or not. They've been able to survive because they have enough coming in. What is the first thing that you do? What do you first thing that you do in that type of situation?
Well, I come in and yes, first of all, we clean up their books, but it's much more than just cleaning up the books. Books is bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is data entry. Then there is the tax accountants that do compliance. But what I do is controller and CFO work of really getting into the company, getting into seeing where they're making money, which services are making more money, which services are not making money, and what's going on.
So how do you do that? Like if they gave you your books, they told you your jobs, what are you looking at? What numbers do you look at? Or
So as my model is, I take a very holistic approach to CFO. I go in there and I look at the 4 P's: people, processes, profit, and products. At people, are they at the right jobs? Are they accountable? Are they getting clear communication? That's processes. Are they getting clear what the scope of the job is, or what the client wants? If you do too much on a job, you're going to lose money. Because labor costs money too. A lot of construction businesses, labor is one of the biggest costs. It's really the biggest cost of it. If your labor is not, if there's no accountability and you're not tracking how many hours it's taking them to do a job, or they're doing too much for the scope of the job, then you're wasting money. If they're doing too little, then they're going to have to go back again, and then it's going to cost more. The processes, do they have good processes, clear communication with the client, how they bill, the payment plans, processes, who gives over, answer to who, and who does what, the people, the processes, the products, and the profit margin. Most of all, profit margin. You could be doing good work, but if you don't have a profit margin, gross profit margin and net profit margin, your business, they'll just be spinning the wheels. And I see it all the time when I go into companies and I see this issue, and in many companies, I implement the changes to help and improve and to make drastic, big improvements in a short amount of time.
so walk me through one of your clients that you've done this for, like from the beginning, what you did first, and then how you got them to improve.
Okay, so I have, for example, one of my many construction clients. I come in and I have meetings with the owner, the CEO, and some of the staff, and I speak to them and I hear what they have to say. And I gave what I feel that was the issue. The issue was pricing, was accountability, was effectiveness, how their employees were doing. So after I spoke to them and I met with them, and then I felt, it's depending on the client. This client, I felt that the people and profit was the biggest issue. So we went through the staff. I looked at the payroll. I implemented changes that they have to track their hours on every job. And then we started to see that the labor, they were like wasting time. They were wasting time. And I also put in a system of a profiting tool to make sure that they're pricing right. So for this particular client, that was the 2 biggest area that was hurting him: profit margins and effective of how they were doing the service. So because that was the first thing, before we even go to budget and forecast, I had to stop the leaking of the money.
Yeah.
So we put a profit tool in, but it was more than that. Once I had the profit tool in for this client, and I would go through each different project and see if we made money, great. I had to raise the prices on a lot of products. I also had to make meetings with the staff members. There's a new CFO. We're going to this accountability. You have to track the software that they use. But if you don't use your software, the software is useless to have to use. If you're not going to use the software and track your hours, travel time to the job, and how many hours on the field and the office work that went into each project, then I cannot see I cannot see if we're making money, if we're not making money. So that was number one. We ended up putting cameras on the vehicles. We caught employees doing improper things with our vehicles. Had to be accountability. Once they saw accountability, then they started really being much more efficient on the job. And then we go through each week. If we did it great on a job, great. If we didn't do great on a job, why? Was it the weather that we can't control? Is there something with communication with the client or with the employee? Then I tweak the system to make sure there's proper communication. They're giving over what's the scope of work. Don't do too much. Don't do too little. Is it because of the client job side they ran it awful? Then do we have to change the pricing? What is going on? If we did good, what's good that we could continue? If we didn't do good on the job, what went wrong? We have to learn from the past to improve. And I really turned over this client really fast in the slowest. It's a construction client. Winter is the slowest. Mm-hmm. And I from using deposits to fund operation, which we all know is really unhealthy, mm-hmm. to really making 20% profit, which to start, it's a very good. But that's just the first step. Then there's forecasts and others. But for that particular client, that was the biggest thing. Profit margin, you have to have the right profit margin to know what to include in, how to price it, and then also accountability. Different clients have different issues. But for this client, this was a huge turning point.
Well, I think especially being able to look at data in real time, like in the week, are we doing well? Are we doing not? So we can still change it or correct things. And, if people know that you're watching, they will be watching as well, and they will do what they're supposed to do. Did you see, like, in that company, when you started making changes, did a lot of people leave? Were they willing to stay?
No, the people in the office that was running loved it. They loved it because also when I believe in team approach. When I go in, I also ask them, how's it going? What's going right? What's going wrong? I believe in a team approach. They loved it. The other staff, it took some time for them really to get into this. And if there was a job that we didn't do well on, and I would call in, like, what went wrong? Sometimes it's, construction, not everything we could control, but sometimes, we could control it, or we could learn from the future. I'm not just into talk. I'm into action. Talk is cheap. Action is what? Follow up. If you have processes, follow up. Profit margin, follow up. If a client's not paying, don't release the product, the final product. It's depending on which construction business it is and what area. If it's a file, if it's, what it is, what you're releasing at the end.
So while this is going on, I know that you're creating KPIs. So first off, what are KPIs? And then which ones should we be watching?
KPI stands for Key Performance Indicators. It stands for what you watch to see if you're on the right track, if you're making more money. Now, there is financial KPIs and non-financial KPIs. So number one, you have to track financial KPIs. Financial KPIs is gross profit margin, the percentage of income from sales after the direct costs, direct labor, direct material. So that's number one KPI. You have to have, first of all, a good KPI. If you're just making out of the hat what's your KPI, they're not gonna make ends meet. But more than that, it's net profit margin, which is extremely important. That's taking the gross profit margin and all the overhead, the rent, the administration staff, the owner, what he wants to take home, the insurance, all operation cost that's not directly related to the job, and the percentage of income over the sales after the direct cost and indirect cost is your net profit margin. That's financial. But then there's also the not financial KPIs that's really important is consistency, repeat customers, and which aren't literally financial KPIs, but it draws on. Because if you don't have a good product, if your customers aren't happy, if you're not effective, that's going to drive your sales, which drives your financial KPIs. I don't just look at the financial KPIs, it's the whole picture.
Gotcha. And so, like for the financial ones and the non-financial ones, how often should we be looking at these? How often should we be checking these?
At least monthly.
Gotcha.
Monthly, quarterly. If you just wait till the end year, like the tax accountants, you lost a whole year. You lost a whole year that you could have made changes, and monthly minimum is quarterly. It's a disaster when I see come in companies and they don't know until after they do their taxes, and sometimes they have their tax accountant doing their bookkeeping. That's very good for compliance for taxes, but that doesn't help you. And I respect the tax accountants. They do a great job in taxes, but their focus is on taxes. My focus is to get that company making more money, not just spinning their wheels and really doing well, not just surviving, but thriving.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So when you look at those reports, if they're not, even if what they are what they should be, we should make sure that we know the why, right? Why it's working. And if it's not, we have time in the next month or the next week to change those things. Well, we still have time to affect change before it's a complete loss.
Right.
What gets measured get managed. So if you're watching it all the time, you can make the changes to correct things. So another big thing with construction companies is that they don't ever know how many jobs they're going to get. They never know how much income they're going to come in. How can you forecast how a business is going to do, or how can you help them plan if they don't know what their month is going to look like?
That's a great question. And there's a few different answers. Number one, in the busy season, not just to spend everything that comes in, is you have to have cash reserve for the slower months. Like construction, a lot of construction businesses are slow in the winter. In the busier months, they should put money aside into a cash reserve. Number two, profit margins. I'm back to profit margins because even in the slower months, if you could make enough money on the job and we make forecasts, we plan it in advance, and we plan conservatively in the most worst case scenario to make sure to make it. Another thing is processes could also help you with cash flow in the slower months, because when you give your clients payment schedule, don't leave all the money at the end. So then if one big clients, construction businesses, contractors could be repeat clients. If their contractor is not doing well and he's late in payment, if you left all the money at the end, it's really gonna hurt. That's just some. And of course, to have a contingency plan, a plan B, to plan ahead. Like what you said, what gets measured, what's get watched gets measured, to really to have the plan, to have a forecast, to know when your slow months, to like have your eyes open.
So another question I have, how do you convince contractors, because they always push back on increasing their prices? Do you get pushback on that?
Oh, I surely did. I surely did. And I came into this client, you asked me, for example, one of my many construction clients, and I said, and I spoke to him and I spoke to the staff and I started looking and I said, your pricing is off and you're efficient. No, I'm priced right. I'm priced right. So then when I made the pricing tool and I showed it to him, because I believe also in communication. I'm not one of those CFOs that disappear for a half a year. I meet, depending on the client, weekly, bi-weekly, a small client monthly, and I showed him what's your direct cost of I'm having the employees track the hours. What's your direct cost of each job? Before the equipment, before the gas and toll. And I said, look, and then I showed him based on the budget of what his profit margin has to be in order to have a healthy net profit margin. And I showed him to him black and white that he was not making enough money. Because if you don't have a clear picture of what your jobs cost you, then how could you have the pricing right? And then when I saw, and then I implemented this, we could raise the price. This we can. If a contractor keeps running his construction site like really messy, and then it takes our field workers more. We will price them more if we could, we price them more by the day instead of by the job. But from going in there and doing it and showing, and there's some things that I couldn't change because it's industry standard. But we have to know what products were making money, which services were making money, which services were cutting even, and which services were making more money.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you're not making money at it, why should you do it, right? Because then you're just basically working for free.
Right, exactly. If you have like these bulk, great point, Carolyn. We had some of my clients have less clients that they give a bulk business and they give them cheaper pricing. But you know what happens is when I went through, they give you so much more business, but you're not making money. You're not getting it. So you're going to hire more staff or pay them overtime, but you're not making more money. It's useless. It's useless.
Mm-hmm.
It's rather get a little bit less, even if some of cheaper clients want to leave you when I raise the price, but making more money on each job. And that's how, even in the slow months of January, February, for this particular that we gave an example, this construction client that I have, he got a 20% profit margin. Because we tweaked. There was employees that were really not efficient, were really like not doing well. After a number of times they were written up, we had to let them go. So we cleaned up the employment, the field workers, and office workers. But I didn't just tell them to go get new workers. If when we assign the jobs and saw what we really need. And exactly, you have to make money in your job, not just keeping your workers busy. We can't run a business on survival. We have to be thriving. We have to have good profit margin, good gross profit margin, good net profit margin. You have to be healthy.
No, I agree. So once you get them where they realize they're creating correct job costs, they're bidding their projects right, they're making money, how do you help them grow?
So as I touched on earlier with the 4 P's, when I look at the whole picture, people, process, profit, and products, where are we making more money? Which products, which services we're making? What's our forecast? What's our sales target? Where we want to go? What do we have to be doing? Are we making the sales target? What should we focus on? What type of clients? My client took a job and he took it for low profit margin. He thought that it's going to open up a door and get a lot of jobs like that. Then we looked at the job afterwards. It was headache. It was hassle. They didn't make much money. And I told him, don't go after this type of job again. It was like, I think for a municipal job or something like that. I said, don't go for it. Once you know where you're making money, what service is making money, what kind of jobs, then once we're going for the sales, either the owner or the employee is going to be trying to get more business, knows what to go for and know what's their target, because there's a forecast, not, like where we're heading.
If you know what jobs are making money, you can try to sell more of those jobs as opposed to the ones that are not making money. Even though
Right.
even though you think because it's a bigger project, you should be making more money, but it could be the smaller ones that are making all the money.
Great point. I just had that the other day by one of my clients. He was so excited that he got two different jobs there were a bunch of little scopes throughout the construction of the building. And he thought, great job. I'm going to make two. And when we got down to the first scopes, I called him up and I said to him, Mr. So-and-so, we did not do well on this job. It looks like a really nice big job, but the land wasn't even. I don't want to, and we ended up losing. Either if it's because how far it is from your field crew, then you got to know it's going to cost you money because we pay in travel, or it sounds like a big number, but it has to correspond to what the labor is, the travel time, the cost of the equipment, or the cost of, depending on what industry in construction. It's not just big job. It has to equal out.
Yeah, and even if you wanted to do those big jobs now, you know that you need to price them appropriately with travel time and tolls and, prevailing wage if that's where you are, all of that stuff has to be taken into consideration. And then, you can lose a little money, but hopefully you'll learn the lesson to charge more next time.
Right. And depending on what construction industry it is, what it's going to be in take to fulfill that job.
I agree.
And another point is, if let's say it's a painter and you've taken a big job, you have to know, number one is to get enough a deposit to have the payment schedule to be able to fund it until you get paid. Mm-hmm. But even to that, you have to be able to afford to hold the job. You have to be able to afford to pay your employees until you get paid.
Yeah.
You have to afford to buy the material.
Now, especially in commercial construction, you can't get a deposit down. You got to go work and then wait to get paid. And then under the commercial construction, a lot of them have a pay when paid clause, meaning that the guy's doing the work doesn't get paid till the GC gets paid, which sometimes could be the entire project. So do you have enough cash on hand to handle that if it happens? So, it's kind of unpredictable in the construction industry.
Carolyn, that's true sometimes, but from my experience, from my developer clients and my construction clients, a lot of times commercial, we still make sure to get deposits. We still make sure to get money along the way and not wait for. And if they know that you're doing a great job and you're really, your service is going to be good and your quality, remember the non-KPIs, how important it is to the clients, the contractors, developers to be happy, they will work with you because they want you. Cheap, they could go to someone cheaper, but if they have messed up, for example, if a surveying company messed up survey and then you're on your neighbor's property and they're going to have to knock down part of their building, it's going to cost them way more money. If they believe you're going to do a good job and you say, I won't do it without getting whatever percentage up front, percentage once they start, percentage, and then just leave 10% retainer afterwards. That's, maybe sometimes they can't, but it's how they structure and choose the jobs and if they can get the money beforehand, they, like Carolyn, like you said, you have to be able to afford it.
Yeah. No, and if you work with somebody and they know how you work and they like how you work, it's a lot better chance you can get a deposit. You can get, that they'll work with you because people don't want to have to go out and find somebody new. Even, and cheaper, like you said, isn't always better. It can cause a way bigger headache at the end of the day than going with somebody that's going to do a good job.
Yeah, especially for construction when it's not $100, it's not $1,000, it's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, $1 million. I see from my experience that contractors and developers, they will stick to who they know, who they feel comfortable, who does a good job, who will do it clean, on time. One of the KPIs, are you doing the job in in the set amount of time that you told your clients, or you're taking 2 months, clients are going to get upset. Everything construction, you can't do one thing before another.
Yeah.
You could hold up a whole job.
No.
So all these other KPIs, it's just as important. It's important as the financial KPI because they're all intertwined. That's why I believe in the holistic approach.
I agree. So if somebody wanted to find out more about your services, where would they go?
Either on LinkedIn, Ahuva Gruen, or my website, agfinancialcpa.com. They could email me, agruen@agfinancialcpa. I also have a freebie for the listeners of this show. Either they could DM me on LinkedIn, top 10, or on my website, the top 10 mistakes businesses make and how to avoid them.
Awesome. That'd be great. And I'll make sure we'll link all this in the show notes. But thank you so much for taking the time to explain this to us.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Thanks.